march we just played is really from a Sousa operetta. In fact, it's the most popular operetta. It really ran on Broadway for a couple of years and was considered by most the first successful Broadway show by an American composer, which is, most people think Sousa only wrote marches. In fact, there's a really funny place, I've probably told this story in the movie about his life, where he comes home one afternoon and his wife is sitting at the piano playing one of his tunes and she's not playing it, and she's playing it as a march, and he says to her, well, it's not supposed to be a march, and she says to him, that's all you can write is marches, but that's really not the truth. He's really going to talk about a lot of different things. I'm sure if you're familiar with a gentleman named Dan Pick, Dan Pink. If you have not read Dan Pink's works, he wrote his latest book, The Whole New Mind, is really fascinating about how things work and how we understand perceptions and where we're going with this kind of study. And he talks about the idea that we started out with agricultural society and people didn't understand why we had the school. We just wanted the kids to go work on the farm. And then we had the industrial age, and mass-producing students worked really well for that because we could teach them all to do the same thing really well. And then we came to technology and information, and we had to start to rethink how people ought to learn. And his idea is that the next round of this is going to be the conceptual age, in which he points out several things that we all need to be able to do to function in an age where you have to think. And along that line, there's several people in big positions that have really bought into this idea. In fact, the president of General Motors and of BMW have come out with statements recently that say something along the line that we are in the process of creating art that happens to move people, which is kind of an interesting concept to think that we're talking about something more advanced than just it has a function. One of Dan Pink's ideas is that one of the 6 things we have to really be able to do is story, and be able to tell a story and be part of a story. In other words, to intrigue people or to explain ourselves to people. Some music, and you'll hear some later on, that we will have a very specific storyline to. Other music, the story is you. You have to actively involve yourself and create the image and the feeling and just absorb the feelings that might be in the music. Some is just pure feeling. In the case of the folk tunes we're going to play, there might be a storyline because these folk tunes might be personal to you. You'll know all the tunes. The setting is very interesting. You have to create the story. some of you will remember the great invention, exciting new system when we all of a sudden discovered stereo. As a high school kid, I had a paper route before 5 o'clock every morning because the people in my little town had the plant change shifts at 6 o'clock, and they wanted their paper early enough they could read the paper before they went. So I saved money out of that little paper route to do several things, and one of them was I finally saved enough money to buy a little portable stereo. It was a big deal to have stereo here. I bought different sounds out of it. The first two recordings I bought, the first two records, were the New World Symphony and a Eugene Ormandy recording with the Philadelphia Orchestra that had the piece we're going to play next on there. It's one of my first forays into classical music and studying and listening, and it's one of the things I still remember as thinking, how does this person take this simple idea that's very similar place to place and make so many variations of sound on the same idea?